I'll start with prayers, and then we'll get from there. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari. Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Raj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yashoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raj. And he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And here's the prayer I read before, and I will read many times more, by Surdas. I offer my obeisances to my spiritual master who gave me beautiful Kantimala, effulgent tilak, the beautiful form of a devotee, and who offered me the shelter. In one of his hands he is holding my hand, and with his other hand he is holding the lamp of knowledge, which helps me to cross over the dark ocean of the material world. Surdas says, my guru deserves the greatest respect, because only he or she can rescue one in the blinking of an eye. I bow to him or her again and again and again. With that, I want to beg all the exalted Vaishnavas, people in presence, for your blessings, that I can say something pleasing that supports myself and everybody in congregation on your spiritual journey closer towards the Lord, deeper in service and deeper into your true heart. And with that, we will also start reading. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 44, verses 40 to 43. So I will share the screen. Here we go. Okay, that's verse 40. Tasyanuja pratarostau kankanyagrodhakadayaha abhyudhavan atikruta pratur nirveshakarinaha. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Kamsa's 8 younger brothers, led by Kanka and Nyagrodhaka, then attacked the Lords meaning Krishna and Balaram, in a rage, seeking to avenge their brother's death. Tathaji Rabhashamstamstu Samyatan Rohini Sutaha Ahan Parikam Utyamya Pashunivam Rigatipaha. As they ran swiftly towards two lords, ready to strike, the son of Rohini slew them with his club, just as a lion easily kills other animals. The son of Rohini refers to Balaram. Nedurdundu payovyomi brahmashyadya vibhutayaha puspaikirtantastam prita sashamshunan rutostriyaha. Kettle drums resounded in the sky as Brahma, Shiva, and other demigods, the Lord's expansions, rained down flowers upon him with pleasure. They chanted his praises, and their wives danced. And here is the last verse. Tesham striyo maharaja suhranmarana dukkitaha tatrapi yurvini kantantya shisraniya shruvilochana. And here we're going to read synonyms. Tesham, of them, Kamsa and his brothers, Striyaha, the wives, Maharaja, O King Parikshit, Suhriti, of their well-wishers or their husbands, Marana, because of the death, Dukhitaha, sorrowful, Tatra, that place, Abhiyu, approached, Vinikantyaha, beating, Shishrani, their heads, Ashru, with tears, Vilochanaha, their eyes. My dear king, the wives of Kamsa and his brothers, aggrieved by the death of their well-wishing husbands, came forward with tearful eyes, beating their heads. So this is a very intense pastime, and I mean I do feel like many pastimes are intense, but essentially I find it to be kind of funny that I was given to speak about it. Essentially we are in the action shots of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna and Balaram are fighting in the arena of Kamsa, and the whole event has been full of so much emotion. I mean, even in these 4 verses or 3 verses, there's already so much emotion that is progressing. And this is exactly our blessing, because we are meant to offer our emotions to Krishna and to become absorbed in thinking of him and remembering his pastimes. And so in these amazing pastimes that we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, we are really given a chance to absorb ourselves emotionally in what is happening, in what is being revealed before our eyes through the acharyas, and also not only to allow our minds to be captivated, but even to allow ourselves to go deeper and understand them and to purify our intelligence and our senses through hearing those pastimes. And so that's really amazing in a way that it's freeing us from bondage by actually becoming more attached to the Lord. And the previous verses focus quite strongly on the love of the spectators towards the Lord. That's what I was really admiring when I was reading them, especially the parental love. And the parents just like cannot blink, because at any moment something can happen to Krishna and Balaram as they're fighting these giant wrestlers in the death arena. And then there is that beautiful comparison, and that's again such a giant contrast, that there is the softness of the bodies of Krishna and Balaram, their boyish forms, and they have the gentle luster of their complexion, and then they wear delicate ornaments, and then they're decorated with so many perfumed oils that have multiple colors that right now are adorning their bodies. And so, yeah, they met Trivakra as we discussed last time, and Krishna, when he was actually accepting her offering, he even chose light-colored ointments to paint himself and contrast with his dark skin, and also to really get Kamsa angry, which is amazing to even know that this quality originates in the Lord. Like sometimes children like really know how to get their parents going, and this is originating in Krishna. And Balaram chose the dark ointments to contrast with his light skin. So then, they enter this arena just looking majestic, but also extremely soft. And then they wrestle. And boys in general, they have experience of wrestling, but it's wrestling as cowherd boys in the grasses of Vrindavan, playfully with each other, not as a death match. And so it brings so much emotion out of people who are spectators. And even the wives that are in these verses at the end, that what we just read, lamenting at the death of their husbands, they themselves are covering their eyes and saying, how could this be that Kamsa is just creating this whole circumstance when such soft, tender, beautiful, sweet, small boys are having to fight these giant wrestles, which are like looking like they're made or made themselves to just be like killing machines. And here the topics or the themes that I was connecting with is the idea of courage and tenderness. And I was thinking about the qualities of Vaishnavas, because as we progress in spiritual life, the qualities of Vaishnava or Vaishnavas manifest more and more. And so these qualities come from the Lord, as we fill ourselves up with Krishna more and more. And of course, we know that we have the processes of devotional service, and that's how we can connect and fill ourselves up with the Lord, with the presence of the Lord and remembrance of Him, and really always being in contact with Him. And so here these qualities are shown, and I really admire them, because it's that quiet strength of Krishna and Balaram, that they are supremely powerful, as they have just shown, by the truly effortless killing of Kamsa and his brothers. And at the same time, they rarely resort to showing off their strength like that. In Vrindavan, they would kill demons once in a while, I mean, almost every day for lunch or before lunch, but it would be only like to show off a little bit of strength and for the pleasure of their cowherd friends, and not to the point that the cowherd friends would ever really be like, oh my gosh, they're actually two supreme personalities of Godhead. And so the relationship would be untouched in that way. And it's because that this way the relationship is sweeter when they're just simple cowherd boys that everybody loves. And on the same, seeing that contrast again, these two personalities have killed with so much ease those who like look so big and build up physically, and yet they are appearing strong, but they are just quickly defeated. And so this is that quiet strength that is shown here, that also I've seen come visible in the devotee's life. How devotees are able to tolerate difficulties and see them with gratitude, and even receive what the Lord arranges for them, even if it's very painful, seemingly, with an open heart. And we even see that very clearly in the material world, in recent happenings of the world. We had a global pandemic. We are going through some economic downfalls on a larger scale. And the Vaishnavas, in their practice of stepping into eternity, they carry that deep sense of resilience, that no matter what happens, like the worship will keep going, the chanting of the holy name will keep going, and they trust that this is my sweet Lord arranging for me. I may not understand,
but it is coming out of love. And so again, that's like the power of the quiet strength that is originating in the Lord and can be manifested, and we can manifest that within ourselves through connecting with the Lord. And I wanted to read a small passage from the Journey Within about this. This is from a chapter called Entering the State of Grace. Divine love is an incomparable gift, and one that may elude us even after a lifetime of spiritual practice. Such love is revealed only to those with a sincere and devoted heart, to those who love to serve. To bring us closer to this truth, sometimes little things in life open our hearts, and we can come to appreciate that there is something more than just our day-to-day passions and sorrows. And so again, I feel like this is that reminder that devotional practice is actually such an elevated practice. And it's also exactly how it sounds, in a way that we can only embody something through practice. And so we are even allowed to invite ourselves into even envisioning what it means to be a devotee, to actually one day truly step into the full embodiment of being the true servant of everybody. And it also brings that very simple truth that His Holiness Radhanath Swami often speaks about, that this life is meant to allow us to open our hearts more and to live from a state of satisfaction. One of the easiest way to live from a place of peace is to essentially lower our expectations, especially of the material world. Because we can have high expectations of Krishna because he is supreme and he's always going to be our supreme friend. But to expect from the material world is quite a downfall. And I was walking on a street maybe 2 days ago, and actually the image came to me of like a rock heart. We're often told how like our hearts are either ice cold and they need to be warmed up with chanting or with practice, or that our hearts are as hard as a rock. And I was thinking about heartbreaks and how the image came to me, how it's like with each heartbreak or each like very challenging situation, the hard, rock hard heart is just broken down. And so it becomes like a bunch of pieces. And then with the next challenge or heartbreak, those pieces are crumbled down again and again until they become like this dust and softness. Just like in Vrindavan, the soil used to be very hard, and then the cows stepped on it out of love for the Lord. So it became very soft dust so that he wouldn't actually cut his feet. And so our heart can also be like that beautiful Vrindavan dust. And there's even a pastime which I've been hearing a lot about recently, which is the cleaning of the Gaudiya temple. And in that pastime, Lord Chaitanya actually exemplifies how we are meant to clean our heart. He first gathers like all the straw from the ground, all the particles of like dust, and sweeps it all clean, takes it out of his own hands in his own cloth, makes a giant pile. And then when he is technically done, he actually goes back again and sweeps again and washes the floor to gather even finer and finer particles of dust. And so in that way, we are meant to really work to transform our hearts. And in this pastime, there is also this mystical progression happening where the parental mood is interrupted for a moment as the devotees begin to see the undeniable strength of Krishna and Balaram. And so they look tender and they look boyish, yet the courage and power they exhibit is difficult to comprehend and can only belong to divine personalities. And so in that way, actually, there is a distance which is being formed because Vasudeva Maharaj loves Krishna and Balaram as sweet boys, and that allow themselves to be served, and not because they are supreme lords. And so that is that distancing of, they love Krishna and Balaram because this is Krishna and Balaram, not because they are supreme personalities of Godhead. And that's such a much sweeter relationship that is also showcased here. And so it's, again, I feel like last class I spoke about this quote of, we love God because he is Krishna, and some people love Krishna because he's God. And that is really a big difference. And Krishna defies, again, the rules and regulations, and shows himself as a supreme harmonizer, because he kills Kamsa, who is his maternal uncle, and Krishna still chooses to kill him as a form of liberation. And then Kamsa attains the form of Narayan because of being personally delivered by the Lord's touch. And I was also contemplating about the presence of the wives, of the delivered ones, or the wives of brothers of Kamsa who were slain by Balaram's club, again, effortlessly. In the last verse that we've read, they cry over bodies of their husbands because they've just lost the shelter that this relationship has provided for them. And they experience dying internally within themselves with the death of their partners, or of their partners leaving them. And at the same time, in that moment, they fully embrace the shelter of the Lord. And this is very inspiring to me, to see how they're simultaneously able to hold their sorrow and grieve the death of their husbands that they've been serving. And still they're actually able to be grateful that the Supreme Lord has delivered them as the inevitable consequences of their immoral lives. And that to me was a showcase that, again, there's no material impediment to advancing spiritually or coming closer to Krishna. How in this situation, this is probably the closest that one can be with anybody else, which is to be married to somebody else. And their partners are totally against the Lord, to say the least. And yet, even within this relationship, with their husbands acting against Krishna and Balaram, they are developing, or have developed, so much loving attachment that when the boys are fighting, they're like fully absorbed. Like, no, these boys should not be, fighting with these giant wrestlers. And then even when they are seeing Krishna and Balaram kill their husbands, they still have faith in them, and they actually have faith of the reasons why he did that. And they agreed that it was rightful because it was a consequence of their actions, and carry no tinge of resentment, although they still grieve. And I find this to be like a very elevated way of processing a tragedy, and at the same time coming under the shelter of Krishna. And so it shows that trust in Krishna's perfection in planning for each one of us. And I have a few minutes left before I open for questions, and I would like to offer an invitation for a continuous journey and non-divided connection with the Lord that I mentioned a little bit earlier, of that full absorption and full meditation, and always thinking of him, never forgetting him, serving him. And also I want to share how recently I heard something from my spiritual master that was very inspiring, in a way that we are taught or told how one way of being truly Krishna conscious is to never forget Krishna. And another way that he presented it, or another angle that he mentioned it from, is that we can be always Krishna conscious if we are always connected to our service, in a way that in every situation that we are going through, we can think, how can I serve in this situation? And what would be a pleasing course of action towards the parampara, towards the devotees, that I could take in this very situation. And so I feel like it's a very sweet, for me, much more approachable way in thinking about Krishna consciousness, that it also is very much on the ground of how can I actually just serve in this very moment. So I want to read you a part of a poem. It's by Kahlil Gibran, and it's called On Religion. And he to whom worshipping is a window, to open but also to shut, has not yet visited the house of his soul, whose windows are from dawn to dawn. Your daily life is your temple and your religion. Whenever you enter into it, take with you your all. And so, yes, that's the invitation to stretch for me the small glimpses of actually remembering Krishna, or actually feeling enthused to chant and to serve, into a whole day or a whole night as well. So there's just no pausing, and it's just extended. And it can be done, especially minute by minute. Just like now, I'm kind of obsessed with calculating how long is the sun going to be shortening its daylight, and when is the last time the shortest day, and when will be the day when it will be starting to accrue. And it's usually a minute or 2 minutes a day that there's less sunlight. And in that way, we can also extend the sunlight, or the true light of our practice, because in spiritual world, there's actually no need for any sources of light, because the personalities and everything is self-illuminated. And so in that way, we can think about extending our own inner luminance by inviting Lord into our hearts, a minute at a time. Even 1 minute a day, that would be very lovely. With that, I would like to conclude my monologue to you and ask you for reflections, corrections, comments, questions, or anything that you would like to bring to our Sangha.
Ananda Manjari, we have a question in the chat. Martine wants to know the name of the poem you just read, please.
Yes, it's by Kahlil Gibran, and it's from one of his most famous works. It's called The Prophet, and it's on religion. Because it's like a conversation. The whole book is like a conversation of teaching wisdom, but it's taught in a poetry form. And so it's just called On Religion. And I read just a small passage of it. It's like 3-page long. Here you go. Thank you.
We don't need any sunlight with devotees like you, Ananda Manjari. We're just satisfied with the sound of your voice.
Thanks so much.
And I see Damodar Priya has her hand up. Bhakti Devi from
I
the
think
corporate
Bhakti
America.
Devi should go first.
And Bhima Devi. Sorry.
Yes, I would like to hear whoever chooses to go first.
Bhakti Devi, please go.
That wasn't Bhakti Devi. That was
this is it looks like I can't control my camera. It's saying the host has disabled something.
Oh no.
Ananda, could you do me a favor and elaborate on what you said, that some people love God because he's Krishna and some love Krishna because he's God, and you say that there's a big difference there?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. Yes, the difference here is that on one side, it's falling in love or gaining attraction towards the personality of Godhead. because of his opulences, which are naturally attractive. But these opulences are what makes us fall in love with the Lord, or makes us develop attachment. And in that way also it brings a mood of reverence. Like, this person is so great, that's why I love them. In a way, in the material world is similar. I actually am going to be like co-organizing an event in the museum I work with, or not even organizing, but working on it. And there are many celebrities coming, and many people are like, oh my gosh, I'm already flabbergasted because this person has power, or this person has prestige in the world, and so I'm attracted to them because of that power and prestige. And so the question would be, which is again, that's what Vrindavan is. Like, what happens if the Supreme Personality of Godhead decides to hide some of his opulences? Like, decides to actually hide his incredible strength, or his ability to know everything, and actually puts himself in a situation when he is continuously surprised by his devotees, or even chooses to be allowed to not know many things for the sake of the relationship. And so in that way, it almost is conditional that we have an attraction towards the Lord because of his greatness, which is still amazing in that way, that we are falling into that mood of looking upwards to the Lord. And the other one is exactly developing the love towards Krishna because he is Krishna, and because I just love him and I want to serve him. And in that way, it's much more closer, because again, this is those next steps of rasas, which is like being a friend of the Lord. And this is exactly that. Like, how is it possible that one can be a friend of the Lord and see himself to be an equal to Krishna? Because they can only perform pastimes when they are seeing each other as equals. They play games, they laugh. The main service of Gopas is to make Krishna laugh and to make Balaram laugh too. And so a lot of their pastimes and what they're doing together is focused around cultivating joy and cracking jokes and creating situations when just they make them laugh from each other, or at each other, or from the situations. And so in that way, it's a much closer relationship, and it's also it has no conditions in that way, because they don't really care that they're the supreme personalities. In fact, when they find out, even in this pastime, it ends with, and I'm sorry for spoiling, but it ends with the parents not wanting to hug Krishna and Balaram anymore, because they are right now realizing, like, these are actually like personalities of Godhead. And so it creates a distance between them, which is usually much shortened or non-existent if they are simply loving Krishna because of who Krishna is, and don't even have access to the awareness that he is God. I hope it answered your question. Please tell me if it did, and if you have any follow-up question.
So the loving Krishna because he's Krishna is not the one where you're loving God because it is the one where you love God because he is Krishna.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, that makes sense. So and which is why we have all these loving pastimes, right? Because how else can you love Krishna otherwise?
In a way, it's like, I love Krishna so much that, I mean, this is not me, I'm not on this level, but I love Krishna so much that it's like, he needs to be God because I don't love anybody else more. And so it's like, okay, it's not like I've developed love towards Krishna because he happens to be God. It's more of like, oh, the person I love the most and I have the most attraction towards and I want to serve till the end of eternity and beyond happens to be God. Like, how nice. Like, that's very convenient, but I don't want to talk about it. So yeah.
Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you so much.
Bhima had his hand raised before me.
Bhima Prabhu, please take voice.
Haribo, Hare Krishna, Ananda Manjari, Devi, Dasi, Maharani. So very nice to hear from you. I wanted to just re-quote a couple things you said. First and foremost, that struck me, of course, the poetics of your speech. One particular example, actually, Jeffrey Ackler wrote it down. Jeffrey, could you go ahead and quote what you wrote down there that she said?
The thing about the quiet strength?
No, the first thing.
First thing. Oh, I can't remember.
Oh, you wrote down a lot. You're the are you the new scribe when Ananda when she's speaking? Let me see if I quiet. Hold on, let me get to it because I didn't want to quote it wrong, but it struck me very poetically.
The quiet strength and stepping into eternity.
Yes, that one. Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. This idea of stepping into eternity. Did you, is that a quote from somewhere?
No, it just came to me last night.
Of course. I think that's wonderful because it struck me particularly in the fact that sometimes we can get caught up in this world with the relative chaos that's happening all around us. And if we pay too close attention to it, as one, I think it was Leela Devi Dasi, when I asked her several classes back, I said, what about all the demoniac activities going on, and what are we supposed, blah, 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 blah. And because it's gotten under my skin and in my heart. And she says, well, we have to be very careful that we don't become Maya conscious. So this stepping into eternity, so if we're not Maya conscious, then this process of stepping into Krishna's wonderful world of play, Leela, and of course, he has his own wars and battles, which always end up in some glorious victory for all concerned who love Krishna. Also, you're quoting from Kahil Gurbrind for saying that my every day is my temple. Can you hearken back to that quote, that poem? It was short enough.
Your daily life is your temple and your religion.
Yeah, your daily life is your temple and your religion. That's wonderful too, because we find that when we're associating with devotees, we have Vaishnav etiquette, or just plain and simple humility, compassion, and care, kindness, that is always hovering about our actions, or we try. For someone like myself, none of those things are natural. But I find that when I'm dealing with devotees, that I'm called to act as if I was standing in front of the deities, that I would never speak in such a way in front of the deities, or if Krishna himself, which he is there. So that it becomes true, as Kahil Gurbrand has said, that everything we do at all time, we can be made aware of Krishna's presence, because we always have a choice to act selflessly or act selflessly or selfishly. And I just wanted to thank you very much for these very poetic nuances that allow us to have faith in Krishna's Leela in our daily lives. And also, I was blessed with a bucolic childhood that we had a neighborhood. This was in the middle of Maine, and we were surrounded by dairy farms, small dairy farms. And so the cows were out in the pastures all day long. And what we did all day long was to play out in the pastures, flying kites and running through the woods and playing war and jumping on the cows and getting the bulls to chase us and stuff. And so I feel particularly, I'm not, so scholarly or anything like that, and definitely not naturally this way or that qualities of a devotee are not natural, but the idea that God, as you said, we love Krishna, we love God because he's Krishna, that the idea of being able to play with Krishna in the pastures, in the fields of our Lord, to play, amongst the golden wheat or the flowing or the corn stalks, to play hide and seek in the corn stalks, or to chase the cows or be chased by the bulls. This is all so very wonderful. And when I first found out that Krishna was a cowherd boy, I just simply said to myself, I'm in. So thank you very much for reminding us of all these things. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful contribution. I recently heard something that also stuck with me, which was, it was also from our spiritual master, and it was, Vaishnavas are worshipable and are expansions of the Lord because they also can reveal Krishna to us. And in that way too, to remember that, and we could see that also in the perfected souls, that every gesture they make, or Srila Prabhupada, like every gesture they make is perfect because it's so infused with that consciousness. And so in that way, every day is fully mystical, and it's ever deepening. It's never really like the mundane. Damodar Priya.
Hare Krishna, my dear sister. I actually wanted to share a beautiful poem that Kartik put in the chat, which I think you'd really appreciate it because you have such a poetic soul. So Kartik wrote, very little grows on jagged rock, be ground, be crumbled, so wild flowers will come up where you are. You've been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. And it's by Rumi. And I just thought it was so sweet and appropriate of Kartik to share that. It's so beautiful. And then you shared, the poetry by Khalil Gibran. And it's been a very poetic and sweet class. And I think the themes that you wanted to share with us of courage and tenderness are so, so, so apparent in your tender heart, that we can only hope to learn from that and grow from that. So thank you so much. I love you very much.
Thank you so much for loving me, for everybody also here for loving me. And this is a beautiful poem. And I love how simple it is. Try something different. Just surrender. Like, why don't you just surrender? And in a way, it is also true that it is that simple, that it just means, can we just turn to Krishna and forget everything else? I love this poem very much. Thank you so much, Kartik.
One time, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu was making apple crumble in the ashram. And another brahmachari came up to him and said, Dayal Gauranga, we're so excited for the apple crumble. You are the apple crumble king. And Dayal Gauranga looked back at him and said, No, Prabhu, I'm a crumbled king. I'm a crumbled king. I'm talking about crumbled. Be crumbled. And you'll be crumbled, by the way, whether you want it or not. Krishna is so wonderful that he will crumble you just enough so that you can wake up, come to your senses, and surrender. And have flowers grow from your head, from the top of your head. I'm picturing Adipurusha Prabhu with that. Yeah. Flower head. Adipurusha Prabhu, would you like to speak? Unmute yourself. You muted yourself.
Krishna to us. Thank you so much. Your delight in Krishna is, beaming out, and we're affected by that. And this class is about, the quotes are about the audience, how they all responded to Krishna's victory and his thrashing of Kamsa. And I can remember, we were kids in the dawning of the television age, and I have 2 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters, and we would just watch television in the evening or on Saturdays, and we just delighted in these different dramas and things. And we've been in these in Sankirtan, these gigantic stadiums with 60, 80,000 people, and some dramatic thing goes on the playing field, and the whole audience, the 80,000 people, roaring with, enthusiasm. We imagine what it's like for the demigods, celebrating Krishna's victory and responding with great enthusiasm like that, and how super thrilling and beautiful it is. So Krishna's affecting us, and you are affecting us by telling us about Krishna's wonder. And here we go. Here comes Radha Muralidhar.
Manjari ki jai. Wonderful class. Turn on your cameras if you can, please. Unleash your dogs.
What did he say?
Unleash your dogs.
I can't hear you. Unleash your dogs. Unleash your dogs. I don't know.
Jai Shri Srimad Muralidhar Shri Guru Chandra Shri Adi Purusha Guru. Where is she? There's no light. Where did the light go?
She wrote in the chat that she had to leave because she has to go to work.
Okay.
She shouldn't have to work.
Yeah.
She does it as a service as well. It's really beautiful. So everything she does with Krishna in her heart. She's a sweet soul.
She's benefiting her karmic employer by pretending to work for him. In fact, she's working for Krishna.
Yeah, and all the people that come in contact with her in her work are very blessed. So
yeah. Great. Okay. I see everybody's happy by this yagya. Be thou happy by this yagya. So come again for another yagya tomorrow. Hare, yes, Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
yes.
Doofus.
Rukmini Devi is giving class tomorrow, so please put on your best clothes and shave up. Be nice. Keep your camera on. Ask a question. And
she's very poetic too.
Yeah, very poetic. Yes, yes. A poet can spot a poet. Kaviraj Bhima Prabhu can spot another Kaviraj. Kavirajini. Bhima Prabhu has Prabhujini, and then he has Maharani. And now, how about Kavirajini?
And Doofusacharya.
Doofus, that's for me.
That's Jeffrey Ackler. That was from me. That's Jeffrey Ackler. I've got a witness.
Okay.